Hello and welcome back. New episode with the Glug. My name is Renato Molo. And today I'm with Keri Algar. And we were just talking before. I was surprised. You also speak Spanish. And you told me that of course, you are in Australia now. Can you just tell us where you are located exactly in Australia? About your past, where you were born.
So, Australia is obviously a really big country, and I'm located on the east coast, sort of in the middle. So the state is called New South Wales, and I'm at the very top part of New South Wales, so sort of a subtropical region of Australia, right by the coastline as well, so right next to the Pacific Ocean, in an area that produces a lot of sugarcane as well. And yes, I do speak Spanish. I was actually born in Madrid in Spain. I've got a Spanish father. And my mother is from New Zealand. So I was raised for the first few years in Spain and then the rest of my life in New Zealand, except for being in Australia now for nearly 20 years.
Okay, yeah. So I was checking, of course, online. I saw a lot about you. I saw that you have been around the world. So you started, let's say, in Spain, then you ended up in New Zealand, but you didn't end up directly in New Zealand. So you have been in different places. I saw you were also a scuba diver, instructor.
Yeah, I guess because I had a father who lived in Spain and I lived with my mother in New Zealand. To see my father, I'd often have to travel either to Spain or he and I would meet up somewhere in the world. And his passion was scuba diving, so he brought me up into that when I was young. But that's also sort of how I discovered rum. In fact, my first sip of rum was when I was having a holiday with my dad in the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
And Cuba Libres were everywhere. And I remember, I was still quite young, but we were out in a flat-bottom boat out in the lagoon of this island archipelago. And we could see a big storm coming. And all the tourists on the boat were getting all nervous and scared. And the crew, who were pretty probably accustomed to these kind of weather patterns, just brought out all the rum and cokes, put on the merengue, and everyone started dancing and having a great time. The storm came and passed, it rained, it poured, it thundered, lightning, and everyone was having a ball, and that was sort of one of my first memories. My parents allowed me a small sip of a Cuba Libre. So it was quite an interesting moment, and for that reason, I guess, having had a father in Spain and my mother in New Zealand, I just got a real taste for travelling, and it was something I couldn't really satiate for a long time. So I lived and worked in lots of different countries, before finally settling in Australia.
Now you are in Cabarita. The town is called Cabarita. Is that correct?
Yeah, Cabarita Beach. It's a small town. It's about 2,500 residents, and it's about an hour and a half south of Brisbane. So Brisbane's probably the biggest capital city near us. Yeah.
And I saw your company, it's called Cabarita Spirits. Can you tell us just quickly what you're producing? I saw you produce rum, but also vodka.
So my intention was just to produce rum, and I started with Soltera Rum, but I also thought that there might be an opportunity to produce some different spirits in the future. So I wanted to keep myself open, which is why I named the distillery Cabarita Spirits and not just Soltera Rum. And it's lucky I did, because rum's actually quite a tough category in Australia, especially premium. Yeah. And it's quite difficult to commercialise. And so when I started making rum and started a business, I had to go out and do sales and marketing. And through that process, I realised that vodka, and gin, of course, but vodka was also a very strong category. And I thought, well, it makes business sense to start making some vodka as well. So I make vodka locally as well, and just rum. I don't really have plans to expand into any other spirits. Intention was just to make rum, really, and that's sort of where my interest and my passion really lies.
Your rum is called Soltera, which means single in English. Yeah. And so are you still Soltera in the rum industry? Are you still doing everything alone, or do you have someone who is helping you out with marketing, with sales, or how does it work in your daily business?
Yeah, mostly alone. So the day-to-day running of my business is me. Mm-hmm. So I make the rum, I sell the rum, I market the rum. But I have actually taken on some contractors in Brisbane doing some sales work for me. And that's been a really, really great move because after, a few years doing sales, I got a little bit burned out. I, I mean, as the producer, I was probably the best person to be on the road and selling the product. But it's quite hard work, and it's difficult emotionally to be rejected, for your rum to be rejected because people have got other rums that they're using, or it's not for them. And so after a few years, I just sort of ran out of steam. So bringing on some salespeople to do some work for me in Brisbane has been really good. But otherwise, I proudly do everything by myself. And it's interesting when you're marketing your business. In English, we can use the plural, so we can say that we do this and our process is that. And I have to remind myself that it's okay to say I and my process is this, because while it means, I guess, that my business hasn't, blown up and exploded, it also means that I'm quite capable of managing everything myself, and that's something I'm quite proud of.
Yeah, I think it's not easy to do all this work, especially first of all, imagine starting doing a rum. I mean, deciding how you produce a rum, where you will produce it, the machine, the distillery. So how was this process? I mean, when you decided to finally settle down in Cabarita, how was the process? Can you maybe tell us a bit how everything worked out for you?
It was kind of a silly idea, actually, and a bit of an emotional, on the whim sort of decision, because having travelled so much, I loved the island life, and especially as a scuba diver instructor, and I had this sort of dream of having a beachside rum bar somewhere in the islands, any island. It could be in the Pacific, or so maybe about 12 or 13 years ago, I was doing a lot of surfing in Indonesia, and I thought, maybe we could have a rum bar in Indonesia. And that's when I started Googling how to make rum. I didn't really have the faintest idea of what even distilling really was about. So I got a bit of a sense of what it meant, and at the time I thought, oh no, that's too complicated. That's too much. I'm not going to do that. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, I was working just a normal job in about an hour's drive from Cabarita, and I was finding the commute and the office work really difficult. I didn't have very much time to enjoy even the weekends, as I was so tired. And I was just wondering, gosh, how am I ever going to get to this beachside rum bar, working like this in an office 5 days a week and commuting 15 hours a week? And I was just sort of, thinking along those lines, and it, sort of the penny dropped, where I thought, in the hinterland, in the interior of Cabarita, there's tons of sugarcane fields. There's a sugarcane mill half an hour from my house, where they produce sugar and therefore molasses.
Is that Condong Sugar Mill? Is that the one where you supply? Okay.
Condong Sugar Mill. And so I just sort of thought, maybe I can make rum, and maybe I can make a living out of that, and that can be my job. And maybe one day from there I can go to the rum bar in the islands. And so it was a bit of it was just a sort of I was actually flying to New Zealand at the time, and I remember looking out the window, flying from the North Island of New Zealand to the South Island, thinking, I really like this idea. I could give this a go. And I got home to New Zealand, where my mum lives, and just started Googling all about, how to make rum, other rum distilleries in the region. And I thought, I think I can do this. And so then I spent the next couple of years working out what I needed to do to pass all the regulatory standards in New Zealand, with the tax department and health department and liquor and licensing. And I thought, I better buy a small still and work out if I actually like doing this, because this is going to be my job. And so I bought a bucket of molasses from a local farm supplying shop. So it was a blackstrap molasses for cows, and a small 25-litre pot still, and started fermenting and distilling. And I thought, I can do this. I remember sitting on the floor at home, and the concrete floor, and watching the distillate come out and putting my finger underneath it to taste it, and thinking, wow.
That tastes good.
Yeah, well, it's just amazing. It's amazing and this is what I love about it still. It's amazing to produce something. It's like cooking. If you like cooking, or you produce this magnificent meal that you can really enjoy from all these separate ingredients, or if you like anything that's creative, whether it's sewing or painting or sculpture and writing, you start with these separate ingredients or ideas, and you bring it together and you make something, and then you taste these drops of alcohol coming off the still, and it tastes amazing. Nothing like a fermentation mix, which tastes horrible.
Yeah.
So once it's fermented anyway, it tastes really horrible. So yeah, I just thought it was amazing. And I thought,
Okay.
I think I could really do this. Yeah, and I still love it. Yeah.
Then you moved to Australia and you bought a bigger still. I read somewhere, you call it, the name of the still is Felix, after your father.
Yes. Well, I was actually living in Australia for a long time before
Okay.
so I did everything in Australia. I've been in Australia for about 17 years now. Yeah.
Okay.
Felix, which is the copper still here beside
Mm-hmm.
me, was named after my grandfather. So he
Sorry, grandfather.
yeah, but purely coincidentally, he was actually a chemist in a sugar mill in Spain. That was his career. He was a career chemist in the sugar mill. Yeah, and I thought that was like a nice connection now that I
Yeah.
take molasses from a sugar mill locally. And also my strength when I was at school and university with the arts and writing, never physics and chemistry. But distillation requires, or especially fermentation, like not comprehensive, but basic knowledge of some chemistry. And I've had to learn a lot.
Yeah, of
Started
course.
from scratch. Yeah, I often have thought about my grandfather wishing that he had been alive and he could help me out a little bit. But
Yeah. So you learn everything alone. We can say that you do everything, reading, videos on YouTube, whatever. I mean, all information.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But it's not that challenging because sometimes it can be juggling different things and changing from production to marketing to sales and just putting on the different hats can be you have a lot of balls in the air that you're juggling. Yeah. So it can be busy in that kind of way. But when you're distilling a lot of the time, especially with a stripping run, so the first run that goes through the still, you've got a lot of time on your hands because this runs itself. Yes, you can monitor it. I'm always nearby. I can always hear it, smell it, and I'm checking. But there's 8 to 10, sometimes 16 hours in the day where I've got time to work, and that's the time that I can spend, administering the business, which I think probably takes the bulk of my time. Yeah, as well as marketing. Yeah.
How many bottles do you produce per year?
A few thousand, not very many. Like it's pretty small batch stuff. Like probably more vodka than rum. Yeah, definitely more vodka than rum. The rum, one batch of rum of the unaged rum, I'm probably getting about between 90 and 120 bottles a batch.
Mm-hmm.
So really small quantities.
Yeah.
Especially for the unaged because my cuts when I'm making the rum are quite tight. And then for the aged products, everything is a single cask. So I've only got maybe 8 barrels at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And they range in different sizes. But I don't really I'm such a small distillery, I don't really have the capacity or the resources to blend barrels into really big containers, for example. It's quite small scale, which means that the barrels are single cask releases, which is really interesting because, I can really see the virtue of blending because if you've got a barrel that's sort of a bit overwhelming in tannins, for example, or a barrel that needs a little bit more oomph, if you blend them together, you get this really beautiful mix.
Yeah.
But I have to really watch how my barrels are aging to make sure that they don't get past a certain point. For example, I've got a Pedro Ximénez cask at the moment. It's 110 litre, I think. It's quite a small format. And I've had rum in there aging for only just over a year. And it's already so strong.
Yeah.
The sherry flavours in it are not overpowering. It's actually amazing. I love it. Mm-hmm. But completely different from what I've been aging in ex-bourbon. And I think that blending the two would be quite interesting. But the uniqueness of my distillery really is that it's small and you have to adapt and you have to be resourceful in that kind of way. For example, I've got one barrel, which is for the product that I've called Oro, which is in the barrel for about a year. Mm-hmm. And I put it in the barrel at quite a high proof, ABV. It was in the high 60s, low 70s, which is pretty high. And I realised that if I were to take it out, put it into one of my blending containers where I can proof it down to 40%, I was going to have too much for the container, the size of the container that I have. So what I've had to do is buy a 200 litre barrel, put it into there, and then proof it down to 40% in the 200 litre barrel. So it's been proofed down from, say, 70% down to 40% while it's still aging in a barrel.
Okay.
So, yeah, which is quite an interesting process. And just one way that you have to be resourceful when you haven't got a lot of resources, which is interesting. Yeah, for me, anyway.
And you produce Oro, which is the aged one, and you produce the unaged one. Is that correct? So you have two types of rums.
Yeah, and I've got a 3-year-old rum coming out in April next year, which I'm really looking forward to. I'm so excited. It's one of my first sort of longer aged rums. Which is cool.
And since you are not blending them, can we say that each bottle or each batch is different?
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, you try to, I think, of course, I guess you're trying to seek consistency among all your bottles. But, I mean, there will be, of course, some differences between batches and batches, which makes it unique. So different. It's a huge difference always. Really?
Each product, no, I do try to maintain consistency. But I've learned the most about distilling and being a distiller since I've been in commercial operation. So my product today, Blanco today, is very different from what it was 4 years ago when I first started. I've had to adapt to what the market locally is looking for and likes.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be commercial, right? I mean, you can make the best rum in the world that rum lovers love, but you need to appeal to other people as well. And so I've had to sort of adapt it. I've made it lighter in flavour, for example, so that it's more easily worked in with cocktails.
So
it's quite different. Oro I try to maintain some consistency with Oro, but yeah, the first batch was quite different from the second batch, and I'm not sure what the third batch is going to be like.
What do you say when you sell it to, for example, a bartender? The bartenders normally are kind of picky if they don't have consistency. Yeah. How do you sell it to them?
Yeah, well, I mean, that is the selling point, is that each batch is unique because it is a small distillery and it is handcrafted. And I actually make that as a selling point. And especially with the, I've got a line, like I said, I've got one coming out in April that's been aged for 3 years. So there'll be a different line of rums, and they'll all be longer aged rums, all single cask releases, but every single barrel is different. So I've got 200 litre ex-bourbons, Pedro Ximénez, 100 litres. So they're all very different, and that's going to be the highlighting feature about them, actually. Interestingly, they're all quite different, but they're, from what I've tasted from my barrels anyway, they're all very Soltera Rum. Like, I don't change the molasses and I don't change the fermentation recipe too much. Some fermentations I've been working with dunder and muck, and some wild yeast fermentations. So that changes the flavours a little bit. But the base ingredient of that molasses is from the same sugar mill. And whenever I taste one of my rums, I'm just like, that is a Soltera rum. It's got a sort of floral almost.
Yeah.
And it's quite floral actually. And I was talking to a beer maker locally the other day, and he does all wild fermentations. And I was talking to him about it, and I said, my rum seems to be really floral. And, why do you think that is? And he said the region that we live in Cabarita Beach, so this sort of small area around us is called Tweed, in the Tweed Valley.
Yeah.
It starts at a volcano, and there's a river that comes down. It's a very fertile region. And he said that it's, it's the second or third most biodiverse region of Australia. And with so much biodiversity, there's so much more pollen, for example.
Yeah.
So many more flowers, so many more yeasts and bacteria in the environment to contribute to that. And so he thought that might be the reason, which is really interesting. It's not only the soils that produce the sugarcane that you're getting the flavour from, but the fermentations, those wild yeasts. Yeah, so every product is quite different, but if you knew my products and you tried something different, you'd be like, that's Soltera. Yeah.
With wild fermentation, you can really take also the terroir with your rum, the soil, but also the microclimate where your rum is produced, and which is really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of the barrels, I forgot to ask you, or I didn't maybe got it completely. You said 8 barrels. You said you had Pedro Ximénez, Bourbon, and what else do you have?
Pedro Ximénez, Bourbon, and Virgin Oak.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where do you buy these barrels? I guess Pedro Ximénez from Spain, Bourbon, maybe some local distillery in Australia, or you ship them all from the States?
No, I mean, because I'm operating with such small numbers, I'm not going to ship.
Yeah, of
So I
course.
buy them from, so in Australia, because distilling's become quite popular, like other parts of the world as well. There are companies that import barrels from Spain, from the US, and distribute them and sell them, distribute them in Australia. So I buy my barrels from wherever I can get them from.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
I've bought some from a cooperage down in South Australia, AP John, and they were excellent. I've bought a couple of new virgin oak barrels from distillers on the Gold Coast, which is a city nearby, and they just had bought too many that they needed, so they were offloading them, so I bought a couple of those. I saw a distiller advertising the Pedro Ximénez barrels, and I thought, oh, well, that would be nice. So, I bought a couple of those.
Yeah.
I really like trying to find products that are close to me so that I can just drive up and put them in my car myself rather than shipping them up to where I live from other parts of Australia. Yeah.
And have you any contact with bigger distilleries? For example, the first one in Australia? Yeah. Exactly. Have you any contact with these guys? Maybe some coaching, some help, or maybe have you been there? Did you approach them for some help? I don't know if there is kind of also with other distillers kind of interaction from your part. Is there a community among distillers, or how is it? Or anyone keeps his secret? They don't really want to share it.
I mean, I think there's a bit of everything. But there's a really strong community of distillers in Australia. I didn't approach Bentley. I thought Bundaberg Rum and Bentley just sort of seemed like such well-established distilleries that I would be probably a bit more of a nuisance to them if I approached them. But those first 2 years when I was doing my research and practicing distilling and getting all my licenses underway, I travelled around different parts of the state and visited different distilleries. I spoke to the distillers, and I mean, that was really instrumental. It was so important to be able to see people actually working. And look, the community is very open. They're really willing. No, I mean, people aren't going to share things like their fermentation processes or their yeast blends, for example, because that's really proprietary information. And things that they've developed themselves over time. But definitely small things like where to suppliers, where to find who are good glass bottling manufacturers, and where do you find closures, what are the affordable label makers. So all the different aspects as well, they're really helpful with. There's an association in Australia called the Australian Distillers Association. They're often lobbying government to reduce the excise tax in Australia, which is exorbitant.
Okay.
But they also offer a lot of courses and a lot of education and training and safety, and distillery safety at the moment is quite a focus. And I also, there's also an Australian Women's Association of Distilling in Australia.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was really fortunate to win a scholarship through them and do a distilling course down in Tasmania as well. So that was really fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's again, it's something that you have to start somewhere, and then you'll never stop learning. We were talking about the sugar mill where you source molasses, Condong Sugar Mill. Can I ask you, how was your first approach to them? How did you approach them? And I imagine that order was certainly a small one. I imagine. How was the first approach to these guys? I can imagine I imagine myself now going to someone. I'm a small distiller. I want to start to do rum. And what kind of molasses are you looking for? How does it work, this whole process? Because there are different types of molasses. How was all this initiation with this molasses buying, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, I like everything that I've approached. I mean, I'm quite a straightforward person, and so I think I've probably come across as being quite precocious as well, especially at the beginning when really I had no idea of at all. But I called them and spoke to their, I can't remember what his title was anyway, but they recommended that I get in touch with someone who buys molasses from them and it puts it into a big truck, like a big 10,000 litre or 1,000 litre, whatever it is, truck. Yeah. And then they distribute that molasses, around to different parts of... like a retailer. Yeah. And so I determined that was going to be the best way to be able to buy the molasses. Because the difficult things that I've had to, the challenges that I've had is I was operating quite a small space. and I don't have forklift or even not even a pallet jack.
Yeah.
Having large deliveries can be quite challenging. Anyway, the only way to be able to purchase this molasses was in a 1,000-litre container. So it's a big square container. So I could buy one of those and put it next to my distillery, but the driveway up to my distillery was too small for the truck to be able to come up. And so my next door neighbour actually found a solution. He'd constructed a really strong iron trolley, steel trolley actually, with wheels at the bottom. And we put that empty container on top of that, rolled it down the driveway, and then the truck would come on the street and fill it up. So my first purchase of molasses was for 1,000 litres. It lasted me a long time.
Yeah, I can imagine, yeah. The advantage of molasses is it's not spoiling, so you can keep it.
Yeah, exactly. I've got a great place for it. It doesn't get too hot and it's shaded and cool. But then the tricky thing is that molasses is really heavy. So a litre of molasses weighs 1.4 kilograms. Yeah, about 1.4 something kilograms. So then I had this, 1.5 ton container of molasses that I had to push back up the driveway and put into position. So I just called my friend
completely alone
Cabarita and got 5 or 6 strong guys and we pushed it up the driveway. Yeah, so I have to do that every time I fill up that container, which is an onerous.
Yeah.
However, getting the molasses and getting the bottles, it's been fine. The only thing is that people have to accommodate that I am a small business. I make buying in small quantities. But that's okay. You end up paying more because you haven't got that scalability. But that's what it is.
You said it's tough, a tough market, of course, a lot of competition. Is it difficult to get all the licenses done in Australia as a small distiller? The difficulties you had, was it too complicated at the beginning? Did you have a moment that you said, no, I'm not going to do it? Or is it kind of straightforward?
It's a process. So you need to adapt your mindset to follow a process. There are no shortcuts around it. It's just one step after the next step after the next step. It can be long. You've got 3 regulatory areas that you need to cover. So one is your local council, which gives you the development approval to be able to have a distillery. And that's probably one of the hardest to attain, and that can take the longest as well. I got lucky with mine. It didn't take too long. I didn't have to change too much in my space. It didn't take too long. It took a year, but other distilleries take about a year and a half or longer. And then the liquor license was not too difficult either. I mean, unless you've been a criminal in the past or have got a terrible track record, again, it's just a process. It takes a couple of months. And then the actual license to be able to manufacture alcohol in Australia, there's a bit of paperwork involved. I didn't personally experienced too many challenges with the process. It was just long. It took about a year and a half overall. But I had been told to expect that, so it wasn't a surprise either. Yeah.
And when you're doing all the process, can you distill an amount of distilling which is allowed to do for your personal testing, for example, or you have to wait for the license to start distilling for good?
Yeah, you have to wait for the license to start distilling for good. You can't legally buy a still over 5 litres in Australia, I don't think, without a license. The Australian government I don't know how other governments work overseas, but the Australian government, it's an interesting system. When you produce alcohol, it actually belongs to the Australian government. You're producing it in what they call a bonded area, and it's sort of marked out, like on a floor plan. And as long as it stays within that area, it belongs to the Australian government. Once you step out of that bonded area with that container of rum or the 6-pack of rum or something, you then have to pay the Australian government a certain amount of tax, and that rum is now yours to be able to sell. Yeah. There is a great tax remission scheme in Australia, which gives distillers a fair amount. So basically, 1 pure litre of alcohol in Australia at 100% incurs about $103 of tax at the moment. So that's like, $30 a bottle of 40% alcohol. But for the first $350,000 of that tax, that's sort of written off by the Australian government, which allows small producers like me to have enough cash flow to be able to continue operating. Yeah. And the schemes and the intention of the scheme is to support employment in regional areas in the country and Australian-made products. But after that, you reach that threshold, it becomes very expensive.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah. Is this now your only activity? Are you just distilling rum? Or are you also doing something else?
Yeah, I still do other work. I work 2 days a week for a local council. My background was in writing and communication, so I still do that 2 days a week.
Okay.
And then the rest of the week is for my business, really. I do a little bit of freelance writing. I do some snorkel guiding as well nearby. I still like doing those things. And I could probably only do the business now. I'm probably at that stage where I could let go of my other jobs, but I actually really like my other jobs because I work alone, and at least with my other jobs, I'm interacting with other people in different ways. I'm still progressing my career in writing and communications, which is interesting to me.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure I really want to lose those jobs. Yeah, I like having the variety, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when we do only a job, I mean, it also could be kind of difficult to go on, so it's also nice to change a bit if we can do that, switching from one thing to another. How do you sell your rum? So it's basically, I saw a video, basically you sell it directly to restaurants and bars, or are you also on liquor shops?
Restaurants and bars and liquor shops.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but rum's a tricky category in Australia, so it doesn't move very well in liquor shops, but in restaurants and bars, especially on a cocktail list, it sells well, yeah.
Okay, and are you also, I don't know if I understood it well, but somewhere I read or I heard about you have a rum bar, or no? Or you have some...
No, this is my dream.
This is my dream. Okay.
You know, a rum bar on the islands. But you know what the funny thing is that... it's like anything, like any of these like big dreams that you have that you'd like to do in your life. Like the life is now. Like this is the moment right now, and we need to be enjoying it. Well, I need to be enjoying it now. If I'm fully focused on just doing this to get to the rum bar, I'm going to get to the rum bar, and then I'm going to be like, all right, well, what next? You know, what now?
Yeah.
So I like that.
And to be honest, owning a bar, it's a tough thing. It's not very easy. So, and sometimes you cannot really rely on, I mean, you cannot do everything alone. You have to rely sometimes on people. And if you don't have the right people, it also can be my personal experience here in Cartagena.
Yeah,
it can be sometimes complicated.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, of course you've got the restaurant, and it's true. In Australia, I'd never want to have a hospitality venue, you know.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'd have the same problems in any other tropical island as well. Absolutely. Yeah.
And about when you started doing your business, what would your friends say about, I mean, doing rum? Are you crazy? Or how was the support from the local community as well? I don't know if the restaurants helped you or someone. How was all the process at the very beginning? I mean, you have a lot of doubts maybe, or you went, I do it, I don't care.
You know, a mixed response from different people. You know, I think my mum thought I was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Didn't really understand. Yeah. Pretty wise people, actually.
Yeah.
My friends are really supportive, of course. The local community is really supportive. I'm not sure what it's like in Colombia and other parts of the world, but in Australia, there's a real push for supporting local people and the different ventures and businesses, and so that's been really great. But you know, locally produced or locally manufactured products in Australia are a lot more expensive than what you can import from China, for example.
Yeah.
So people would like to support local, but sometimes they can't afford to, and that's really understandable as well. So considering those things, and it's also been a pretty tough economic climate the last year especially, but those things considered, the community's been really supportive, my friends have been really supportive, but also realistic. Like, you know, there are a couple of times when I've said I remember telling a friend that I'd gone to see so-and-so in someone's distillery, and that they looked at me like I didn't know anything, and she said to me, Keri, you don't know anything. And I was like, true. So I did have a bit of a tenacious approach about it, where I just was determined that this is what I was going to do. Well, no, actually I thought this is what I'm going to do unless one of the regulatory bodies says no. Like, if I can't do it in my location at home, if I can't get a license for this or for that, well, that I'm going to stop there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't happen. So suddenly I had all these rules, and I was like, right, away we go.
And what was the biggest challenge in all this process?
Between sales and marketing, and actually I think it's the technical skills as a distiller and experience that I've had. It didn't matter how much I'd practiced in my small 25-litre still, suddenly producing my first few batches of a commercial product, man, I ran into heaps of problems. I felt like it was just like one mistake after another problem after another problem. I had to problem solve all the time, and that's when just learning the basic parts of chemistry, of fermentation, distillation became really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was, and it was really tough, actually. There were a tough couple of years. It's taken me a long time to problem solve a few things. And like other people probably would have done that first before they released a product into the market, but I was problem solving a lot of the time with products in the market, which was kind of stressful. Look, just they weren't huge things, and I realised in time that they happened to everybody. One example is flocculation. So that's when the oils come out of solution and form like a haze or a little...
Yeah. It happens a lot in beer as well, I heard. Is that correct?
Is it? Right.
I think it was, I read something, and it's maybe that the effect they're looking for haze beers, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, okay.
Something
could
like
be.
This. I'm not sure. But this is something that you don't want in the spirit.
Well, I mean, the only way to really prevent flocculation is by bottling at a higher ABV. Mm-hmm. So there's enough alcohol in there so things don't come out of solution with the amount of water in there. Or chill filtering. So if you filter your products cold, then it takes out those fats, those lipids. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have the resources for chill filtering. And also you're removing a lot of flavour at the same time. Yeah. And so just fine-tuning my distillation to prevent that from happening has taken some time. Yeah. Or to reduce the amount of flocculation. There's still going to be some flocculation in some of my products, and that's okay. But there were a few batches that I was getting a lot, and it did not look good in the bottle. Yeah. So I had to work through that.
More rum for you, maybe. Or you could...
Yeah. Well, fortunately, you can also redistill products as well, right? So, yeah.
So you're bottling all your products. I saw on the website 40-41 PV. That's it. You're not
40 for the two products that I have for the rum, 38% for the vodka, and then the special cask releases. The first one in April will be at 49%. I've got another cask that I barreled at quite a low ABV, so that'll be a cask strength. That'll be in the mid-50s. Yeah. So the special cask releases will definitely geared more towards the real rum lover. And the real rum lover likes a strong rum. They want it to be in the 50s, really, on average. So those special cask releases will be more geared to the real rum lovers.
Yeah, this is also more the geeky segment of the market. I know when you start, when a distillery starts, of course, the first thing is doing white rums, battle rums for selling them. Then you start to... same time aging them, you are going higher, let's say, in your segment. And then if you have, of course, cask strength spirits, these are ultra premium segment part of the rum, which is maybe the last part you want to reach. But after maybe, say, 10 years, of course, you can, after aging a lot of rums, it's the natural... It's where you are aiming to, I guess. So anything in the future you are releasing? So you said 3 years old rum. Anything else? Special editions? I don't know if you do anything else for local events, something like this. Are you doing something special? Or
no, I haven't got anything in the pipeline at the moment. But because I'm so small, I'm really agile. So if someone said to me, "Hey, look, we'd like a barrel like this or something produced like that," I can say, "Sure, I can do that."
Private labeling. Could you do that? Private labeling for an event? Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I haven't really looked into that yet. I guess that's actually one thing of working on your own. I can cover most of the basics of my business and my day-to-day running, but when it comes to having those creative ideas that you've just mentioned, for example, and actually executing them, I run a little bit short on time for those sorts of things. Time and energy, as those things require a lot of energy. And sometimes I do find myself sticking to my basic rum production, filling the barrels that I've got, and those great ideas slip me by because I just don't have the capacity to execute them, which is a bit of a shame. But maybe one day, or just my growth has been incremental. So maybe one day, But I've got a couple of barrels of larger format barrels that I've got earmarked for 5-year and 10-year releases, which is really exciting.
Okay.
And I've completely run out of room in the distillery where I'm at now. I mean, there's literally like a metre pathway area through around. Everything else has got containers and barrels and stills, and it's just totally jam-packed. But I do have secured a shed space just 15 minutes down the road where I'm going to start putting my barrels, which will give me some more space to get some more barrels, because honestly barrel aging is just super exciting, and it's just so much fun.
I have a small still I bought in Switzerland a couple of years ago. I did my distillation, was amazing. As you said, I was just tasting my first drop of my first distillation. I just loved it. And I also bought a small barrel here in a Colombian oak barrel, which I aged some spirit, which was already done at 40% ABV, not that strong. But after just 3 months, seeing how everything changes the flavor, and also our guests were like, wow, this is amazing. And just putting a spirit into the wood, it's amazing. So this is something that is really inspiring what you're doing. And I hope that also, if someone who is hesitating doing this, what you're doing, like me, I would like to do that. The only problem is I live in Colombia, and here the laws are really complicated.
What's it like?
There is a monopoly of the departments. So, and they wouldn't really allow you to do it. Yes, you can, but I mean, I wouldn't really rely here investing money in Colombia for the moment with these laws. Maybe in a couple of years or 5 or 10 years, there are laws coming which are opening the market, but it's still like, I don't know, I don't really trust for the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, there is not really, to me, the full, maybe I'm wrong, but the complete basis for being sure 100% to be able to distill without problems. So my idea would be maybe one day doing something like you do. Why not in Switzerland or in Europe? Maybe, of course, I'm not saying it's easier, but maybe the laws, you have some laws which are solid. I mean, it's not like here there's a lot of corruption. They may come and they say, no, you have this, it's not working. They could just stop the process because they don't like you, or you're maybe bothering the big guy who is distilling some. I don't know. It's this kind of mentality here. So in Colombia, the market is it's really tough. Because of this monopoly. Colombia is a big country. There are 33 departments, and these 33 departments have their own monopoly. So they are really protecting themselves. It's like in Australia, imagine you have the different states. Each state doesn't allow you to get in because you're coming from another state. So it's it's not an easy market.
Are any of the distilleries state-owned, or are they private companies?
So the majority are state-owned. The biggest one,
really,
it's not 100% from the state, but the state gives to the privates, and they manage it, and they pay the taxes and everything. And there is one now. There is a new law which came, and there is a company which started distilling on their own, but it's just recent. And let's see, they are doing well, but it's not always easy because, again, a lot of bureaucracy in Colombia, and there is a potential, but
it sounds like a high-risk enterprise, like someone can come in.
And I think you need money for that. So if I would do it like you, maybe it would be kind of impossible to get just the license to do it. But I'm sure that...
to hear that, let me just say, because in Australia, people love to complain everywhere around the world. In Australia, we're always complaining about our government and how difficult they make it for us to distill and whatnot. But it's so great actually to learn about a different country and the challenges that you have to even open a distillery, which is something that I realise in Australia we take for granted.
Yeah. No, I read this book. By the way, I don't know if you read it. This is an amazing book about the history of rum in Australia. And it was illegal for a long, long time because, of course, it was a social problem back then. The history of Australia was like the place where the cons were sent at the beginning from the British, and alcohol was a problem, and it was ruled by the rum corps, by the soldiers, basically. And it was for a long, long time illegal. I think that's also why maybe in Australia, I think now it's open, of course, but it was hard to get into a open market. It took a while until Australia opened.
Yeah, look, the excise laws that we have in Australia currently were established in 1901 and then like 1916, so they're really old laws.
Yeah.
And rum, for that reason, in Australia, has got a bit of a motley reputation. Not directly because of that so long ago, but there's a distillery in Queensland that's quite popular, and it produces rum on mass scale. It might not be the best quality kind of rum, and a lot of young Australians have their rite of passage into drinking alcohol by getting really drunk on this rum and having a horrible experience, and then not wanting ever to drink rum again. Which is why rum's actually a really difficult, well, not why only, but it's one of the reasons that rum's a really difficult category in Australia. So it's got a challenging reputation.
So Keri, thank you very much. I don't know if you want to wrap it up, say something else. I forgot maybe to ask you some advice.
If anyone's listening to this that doesn't drink rum, and maybe they're a whiskey drinker or a gin drinker, or just to realise, like, it's something that I've only discovered through making rum, is that it's an incredibly varied product. You can use molasses, but you can use sugarcane juice or cane honey or sugar, different distillation methods and stills, and it's you can get this amazing varieties of rum, and then with the aging process. So to give it a try, because the complexity, the flavour profiles of rums can be extraordinary and extraordinarily different. So I really recommend that you test yourself and try different rums.
Exactly. Try rum, try the different ones, start from the biggest company one, then narrow it down to other products, and you will never get bored because everywhere you can find a type of rum. Yeah. And it's an amazing journey.
Everybody out there, I'm sure of it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I hope to see you soon. Maybe one day in Australia. I hope to taste also your rum one day. I guess you are not distributing outside of New South Wales.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
Outside of Australia, not yet.
Okay. And maybe in Europe one day, maybe Spain, which could be a market, which could be a target market for you.
Yeah, definitely.
A possible market.
I've been approached by foreign distributors actually, but I can't produce enough at the moment to be able to supply them. Yeah. They
also ask a minimum of production, so you can maybe really do it. Yeah.
It would take me like a year to produce that much to be able to send away.
Yeah.
Renato, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and bye bye, Keri.
Okay, thank you. Bye.